Wi-Fi? Yes, it's the Jimmy Doane Show live. Right here on Facebook. We do this twice a week, 4 o'clock New York time. Sundays and Wednesdays. You can find us around the web. If you search for Doane, D-O-A-N-E, Jimmy. You can find us in audio format. Lots of places. Or video on YouTube, Twitter, Gab, Parler. Those places. And right here on Facebook. Today is the 12th day of August 2020. And we are in the remote studios today.
Remote studios, that's right.
That's right. Dad's visiting Hogwarts.
Yeah, good.
Where he teaches.
Well, needless to say, there's lots of stuff happening. I say lots, there's only two things.
Two things. I know one of them.
Yeah, I know that have eaten up everything. Kamala, of course.
Kamala.
Well, you saw where somebody called her, Tucker, I guess, called her Kamala.
I didn't see it, but I did, like a week ago, he did the same thing, or 2 weeks ago, or a month ago, or something. I saw him say that, and I was like,
somebody corrected him.
Right.
And he says, who cares?
Right. I mean,
who cares?
This is like data and data.
Yeah.
I mean, but when's my name?
Yeah. Well, it is interesting because you can see that, right off the bat, it doesn't take you too long to understand how the cartoonists are going to handle this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's going to be unbelievable.
She's an easy target in a lot of ways.
There was a thing that I've got a little bit, one or two little pieces of it here, which we'll talk about in a minute. But before we get to that, I just want to bring you up to date on the money situation. Bitcoin is still about 11,500 roughly. Okay, it's about what it's been for the last couple of weeks or so. And the gold is about where it was. It plummeted, then came back. It's still about $1,950 or thereabouts. Right. And silver has done a big run up.
Yeah. Well, and it came back down a little too.
It did. Yeah, it did. It's same thing. They did, but
up to 29.
Well, it's today. When I looked at it today, it was 26.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but that's from 2-3 weeks ago. That's $10.
Oh, they're killing them.
Yeah, they're killing them. So, and of course, Peter Schiff has come out all. Said this is just the start.
Well, he talked about this as he said there was a correction coming. It went a little too fast.
And he said that when it drops down, when you have a big down like this, that means it's a bull market.
Yeah, I heard him say that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that kind of makes sense in some esoteric, vague way.
Again, this reminds me a little bit of the when I first got into gold and stuff and silver. This was like in the 70s. And they had all these chart things and head and shoulders, the slope, the correction line, the 55-day moving average as opposed to the 200-day moving average. Yeah. When they cross, I'm going
to death cross.
Yeah, that's it. Jesus. You cross the streams, and who goes, the devil comes out. But I thought it was kind of interesting. One of the things that I did notice about Bitcoin, about cryptocurrencies at any rate, the high cost of sending money across borders in the conventional way has caused many to turn to local cryptocurrency exchanges, catering to overseas workers and their families. Nigerians also often use their phones to send money to each other and try to pay in shops. Recently, businesses in the country have been adding crypto plugins to their phone payment options, adding another way in which Nigerians can use crypto in their everyday lives. Now, what I did was I pulled up this chart. And what you can see from this chart is the percentage of transactions that are in Nigeria is the top, and it goes on down to,
32%. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's 32% of the transactions are in crypto.
Well, that makes sense.
It's just amazing because, and so you look at this, and you can see at least in places.
Zimbabwe on there.
Huh? No, I guess I don't know. They're using. They're probably reverted to shells and sticks or something. But anyway, this gives you an idea of the kind of stuff. And Nigeria is the big one. Of course, that's the most populous country in Africa. Nigeria is.
Is it?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't know how many.
They got lots of oil there, right?
Yeah, but I don't know how well they're using it. But Vietnam, even 21% in Vietnam. South Africa, 17%. Turkey, 16%. They must be upset about that. Peru, 16%.
Yeah, they're losing Turkey's whatever they've got. Lira is, it's diving.
But then they get down to Japan, 4%. They don't care. So
well, I guess shoot, they haven't been exactly stable with their currency over there in the last.
Well, it's hard to say. They're unique people over there.
Well, they are, but
they really are.
Still, they followed the inflate city.
They did
plan,
and that was one of the reasons why. Their depression, if you want to call it that, it started like 20 years ago.
Yeah, they're in stagflation for like 20
forever,
years.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I'll say, my favorite new digital token is called the Digix.
Yes. Well, tell me about this Digix thing.
Okay,
I kind of looked it up and I saw. Now this is the one that's backed 100% by gold.
Yes.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. Apparently, the way a new coin gets formed is you go down there and you deposit a gram of gold,
right?
And then they mine one out of the system, and they use the Ethereum blockchain, as I understand it, but it is backed by gold, 100%. Not even a margin. So, it seems
but how do you get a hold of it?
Well, you gotta go through. Right now, it's not on any of the big networks that I know of.
Okay.
You can't get it at Coinbase, but you can go on to eToro or some of the more complicated ones, and then I think you got to buy some Ethereum maybe and then trade it into the Digix or something.
I saw that.
But that to me, this is pre-market.
Let me tell you. I remember when Bitcoin showed up, and it was very complicated at first. Literally, I had to go down to the CVS pharmacy here and hand them money, and they gave me a receipt, and I went over and picked up the phone. There was a special phone that would connect you to the thing, and you would read off the number on the receipt, and then that would entitle you to the money would then be transferred in, and then you to some place, I forget exactly where, but it was literally
several steps driving
and doing.
Yeah, well, that's what means that
cash.
It hasn't really.
Checks.
That's what it hasn't really hit the market yet.
Yeah.
So hopefully, and this should, in theory, if this is the vault for the gold is in Singapore.
Okay.
And should be very secure.
Yeah.
Should be very up and up, non-corrupt situation, and if they are able to maintain it, this should create a floor for that coin.
Yeah.
And so I can't. It's hard to believe that other people would. Why would you want a different currency that could go to zero overnight? You wake up and all of your money be gone, or you buy this one, and the worst that happens is you get down to the price of gold, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And it just seems like to me, it's like the new money. This is what I would do if I were in charge of everything.
Well, you can imagine. Not yet, and I know that out of the 150 or so central banks on the planet, they're not panicking yet.
No, not yet.
But if it ever comes to pass, you can imagine that they're just going to poop bricks, and probably I don't know. Singapore's not all that big.
I've been thinking about the economy and stuff, and the crash and the downturn and everything. And Peter Schiff says, "Yeah, we were in for a depression anyway." But the thing is, it comes down to what do we still have production? What do we still have in production that keeps the whole thing afloat? And it seems like we've still got a bunch of viable companies and people doing stuff.
Well, still we got, I'm not going to go into it all, but a lot of the other problems we got because we have a huge drain on the production in this country, in that the people that are not working get money. And
that's huge, and that's become obviously
the safety net is huge.
Yeah,
and it's expensive.
Yeah,
and
it's growing fast.
And they want to do it again. They did the $1,200, and then they did the thing here locally. Even they're doing a CARES program or something.
All right, now I did a little bit of math on the back of the envelope about the whole money thing. People come out and say, "Oh, you just care about money. You don't care about lives." Let's just consider a couple of things, just very quick. Let's say that they spend $5 trillion over and above what they were going to based on this crisis, okay? Let's imagine that 10% of that money is wasted because it's either spent recklessly or it's squandered on stuff that's not going to work, that has no real promise, but they're just putting it out there. They're going to spend money like government spends money, which is usually incredibly wasteful. Usually it would be half of the money would be wasted. But let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say only 10% is wasted. That's $500 billion that literally evaporates off of the planet. Now, think about if only 10% of that money would be spent on health care. And people spend about 10% of their money on health care, generally speaking, at least. That's $50 billion worth of health care spending that is just gone from the planet. It's just gone from the universe. $50 billion. How many lives do you think that translates to? One. Yeah. No, we're talking about now, are people going to forego their life-saving treatment because they don't have the money? Well, maybe not. This is how it's going to manifest in the future when the prices really rise. When you go to the poor person goes down to buy their groceries and they've got $50, which they've always had $50. Now it's not going to buy as much. So now they're going to say, well, do I get the medicine or do I not get the medicine? Do I get the milk? What do I leave out? Now, yeah, sure, you're going to say, well, they're going to leave out the milk before they leave out the medicine at some point, but let's assume that the drugs aren't exactly life-saving. Let's assume it's blood pressure medication or your diabetes medication or something. People are going to forego that stuff, and it's going to cost lives.
Cut it in half.
You could, and you're going to do that. People do that stuff.
I know that.
And so they're going to, because the money won't be there when the prices finally rise. What's going to happen is it's going to cost lives. And if you imagine, let's just say, I don't know, $100,000 worth of money per person doesn't get spent. That's millions of lives. A million lives at $100,000. That's 100 billion, right? Okay, so if 50 billion just evaporates out of the air, I mean, you're talking about 500,000 people could die because of the lack of money. Just because of the waste of money. So, COVID kills 150,000. We may have killed 500,000 people indirectly by squandering money that would have been spent on health care.
Again, we talk about this, the one thing that always happens is the great law of unintended consequences. And you can't, when you're talking about millions of people, making independent decisions. Right. Like, do I get the milk? This person says I'll get the milk, this person says I'll get the medicine.
Right.
You don't know that.
I'll get the small milk, I'll get the big medicine, whatever.
And so, but all of that comes into the mix. And when they do the aggregate, as you say, there are people that are just flat going to die, not going to make it.
They are, and it's going to be a lot of people, and it's going to be a lot of pain. But that doesn't even count. That's. I mean, you heard me do the numbers. That's reasonable percentages.
Well, what's interesting also is that those people that die like that, other than the COVID people, interesting enough, is pretty much hidden away. You don't see it.
You would never know.
You would never know.
No, it would be just some guy dies from heart attack or whatever, and you didn't realize he skipped a month of heart pressure because he couldn't afford it anymore.
Yeah.
Because now his fixed income doesn't buy as much food, and that is the consequence. It's not just quality of life care. It is literally people being alive, and so that is why you don't spend money like this and rob the savers. And it's a hideous precedent that's been set here. And honestly, it was George W. Bush who started the whole thing with the bailout for the $800 billion.
Yeah.
Before that, it was anathema to bail out everything.
Well, to bail out everything.
Right.
Yeah.
We had done Chrysler. I know that was the one. That was maybe the initial beginning.
That was, yeah. Boy.
But still,
and people. It was funny because at the time, people warned. They said, "Look, if you start this, it's never going to stop."
Exactly. And here we are.
And here we are.
And this year we're going to spend $5 trillion extra dollars, and 500,000 people are going to pay with their lives.
Well, and of course we'll never know exactly.
You'll never know. Nobody will know. It'll be 100 years before they can do a study that matches that up.
Yeah, well, it's...
so there you go.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're gonna watch each day as it goes on till, as I say, when the prices start to go through the ceiling. I was when I was over picking up my pills. I'm lucky, of course, being an old person, susceptible to COVID, of course, but still, I have pills because of my double lung transplant that I take to suppress my immune system, which means I'm not supposed to get sick, otherwise lest I die. But I was talking to the little girl who was waiting on me at the pharmacy, and I said, "Wow," I said, "Boy, this is one of my most expensive ones." It was like $46 or something was my copay, and she said, "That's nothing." And she's, she looked to be maybe 28 or something. She has a medicine that keeps her alive that costs her $1,000 a month.
Wow.
Because she doesn't have all the insurance that I have.
Yeah, and you can say whatever you want. I guarantee you, if there was no patent protection on that medicine, and there was no regulatory clampdown on the manufacture and distribution of it, her pills would be $50.
Well, it is interesting because I don't know if I've got it on here, this one, but I did see a story about how the Food and Drug Administration, saves us from all these things when, of course, it doesn't. It actually kills people because they don't approve this stuff.
Right.
The government's, their first reaction on any time is to say no.
Yeah.
Could I have a permit for build a house? No.
Right. Well, the default answer is no, which is absolutely the reverse of Americanism.
Right.
The Americanism used to be you can do whatever is not prohibited.
Yeah.
And now it's you got to get permission. You got to get people. I hear people talking about driving as a privilege. There's no such thing as a privilege in the law. There is no. It's not anywhere. Nowhere. Never. Anywhere. So no, you have a right to do these things. You have a right to do stuff. Your sphere of rights should grow at least until it runs up against somebody else's rights.
Right.
And that's not what we've got now.
Well, of course, and what happens is, as you know, it's when an actual crime is committed that maybe somebody hauls you. And for instance, DUI, okay, but when it's only when you crash into somebody that they haul you in and say you created some damage or you hurt somebody.
What do you mean DUI? They pick you up when?
I know, but I'm saying they shouldn't. In other words,
right? Yeah.
The point is that
they should wait till the harm. You have to wait till the harm.
That's what I was trying to say.
Okay, yeah. You have to wait till the harm happens because look, imagine two kids go into a convenience store to steal something and then they change their mind. Nothing's happened.
Yeah.
They change their mind. Okay? If you knew going in that they had some probability, you might arrest them for a future crime. But no, you have to wait.
Minority Report.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you have to wait till, and that's what DUI is not even a future crime because the person never even intends to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
So it's now, hopefully that'll all be solved by self-driving cars, but still.
That'll be fun. There are going to be a lot of people that are not going to like that either, of course, for some reason. Anyway. Let's move on to Kamala.
Okay.
Kamala.
Yes.
Kamala.
Kamala.
That's right. And it's Trump said she was my #1 pick.
Yeah. Well, I guess Scott came out and said that he picked Biden or whatever. But you mean #1 pick for what? That's who he wants to run against, or that's who he thought was going to be?
He thought that was Trump's #1 pick for vice president for Biden.
Well,
that's what he said.
Yeah. So what do you think about her?
Well, it's interesting. Let's just go on. Trump continued on his list of points on which to hammer Harris, noting she's in favor of socialized medicine, where you're going to lose your doctors, you're going to lose your plan, blah, blah, blah. If you want your doctor, you can't have it, blah, blah, blah. She wants to take your health care plans away. She wants to take your guns away. She wants to take everything away. And she was really nasty to Kavanaugh, which she was.
Yeah.
And Justice Kavanaugh, she was nasty to a level that was just a horrible thing. And I won't forget that soon, Trump added, referring to her aggressive line of questioning. Yeah. So then I went through and I found, and I didn't pull them all up here, but here was 55 things you need to know about Kamala Harris. And they started off with where she was born.
Yeah, I read them.
Yeah. Okay, did you?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I read them all too. So I thought, well, that's not all that necessary.
Well, it gives you a little perspective. I mean, to me, but my first thought about the whole Kamala Harris pick is this. I am disgusted that a guy who is in line to maybe be the president of the United States would come out and announce that he is selecting his running mate based on race and gender. To me, that is just anathema to free society. That is so bad. It's such a horrible precedent, because if you think about, if you're a 10-year-old white kid, a male, a white boy, and you look up and the authority figure in the country has just said, you don't qualify,
right,
based on immutable characteristics that you have. It's horrible racism and sexism is what it is. And people are going to say, well, he's just making up for the horrible racism and sexism that happened in the past. No, you're not. You're setting a new precedent for a different kind of horrible racism and sexism.
Yeah.
Because the kid may not make that distinction. He's going to grow up thinking, there are people out there who hate me because of my immutable characteristics. Because and that's it. And this is an innocent child we're talking about. And all over the country, that's the message that was sent to kids like that. And it's horrible that he would pigeonhole himself like that based on characteristics that obviously have nothing to do with character. And here we are fighting this whole battle about content of character and everything, and the lead guy goes, hey, I'll pick somebody because they're a woman and because they're black. It's like, ugh. It's horrible. I'm just disgusted at that, and everybody backs it like it's it's a good thing.
Oh yeah.
And it's just it's a horrible precedent to set.
The question is, what's the next precedent?
Well, exactly. I mean, what
LGBTQ?
Well, yeah, maybe so. Or imagine if it goes on for a while, and here we are 3 presidential elections down the road, and somebody's saying, well, I'm picking a white person this time, or I'm picking an Indian or a Native American, or what? I mean, no. Get back to the merit. Get back to the things that matter. Please, you guys. You're supposed to be in charge. Supposed to be leading here. You don't lead like that. It's just so backwards. It's amazing. And so I'm disgusted at that whole arrangement.
Well, Mrs. Jimmy had a lot to say about this.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, she's convinced it's all an Obama conspiracy.
She thinks Michelle's going to jump in.
No, not Michelle. But she really thinks that Biden, if he makes it to the thing, is going to be attached by strings.
Right.
Well,
I think that's pretty clear. Biden.
Well, it is going to be interesting, but the question is, I've talked to some people, and I think even you were one that said this dementia thing is a nothing burger.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it when I see him in it.
I tell you, I think it's really big.
Well, it depends on how quick the decline is happening.
Right.
And some people say, I've heard that once it begins, it can onset pretty fast.
Even as it is right now, if it goes no further, the way I look at it, if it stops at this point, I think we have a real problem.
He doesn't seem like the forceful, commanding.
Well, what you said, and I thought this was kind of interesting in a way, but I'm not sure I agree with you. And what you said was, there was a fellow, I forget who it was, on the not Wired, but Shapiro's show, his network, his little network, one of the guys there, and he showed 2008 Biden and 2020 Biden.
Yeah.
12 years difference, and the difference, at least on the clips, which were 5 seconds, 10 seconds.
That's the problem. Is that all?
But I'm saying, even you can say what you want, but maybe this is not exactly the same thing. But when you jump off of a building, and the difference of 5 seconds is between you're still alive and you're splattered on the sidewalk.
Yeah. Well, it could be that unfortunately, we haven't seen any real lengthy statements by him. There have been no debates. There's no speeches or anything like that. And I would bet that we're not going to see any. But we could. Like I said, I saw the one interview with him just a month ago. It was 30 minutes long. And he didn't do the stumbling and stuff. He did it like once or twice. But it was, that's... Even Shapiro does it once or twice.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand that.
And so all you got to do is cut those up and then show them in a row, and it makes him look horrible.
They do it all the time. No, right. we understand that. That is... but, that's all one of the things that we're seeing, though, is that the media are pretty much Democrats.
Media
socialists.
is.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm sorry. The media are. The medium is. Okay, the media are all, typically Democrat, socialist type people. And they they hone in on that, almost no matter what. And there was something that they were talking about. Some of the stuff that Biden had done early on had been pretty much just not mentioned. It maybe was mentioned once or something, but then the other people are two things. Of course, there's the one meme going around is how he snuggles everybody. The touchy-feely. Jesus, what's this all about? And I think that they're kind of wondering how that's going to play out.
They're going to keep him away from people.
They're going to keep
especially
away from
kids.
People. Well, it is the other thing I've seen. Believe it or not, I've seen a really an amazing increase in the number of cartoons that are anti-Biden.
Well, yeah. Well, you would expect that.
Well, you say that, but I mean, where I go, I have.
Oh, I see what you're saying. From the left, you mean?
Yeah. This is a lefty. There's a lefty cartoon. I've written to him. It's Kegel. Kegel has a cartoon site, and I wrote to him one time. I said, this all the stuff you do here is all lefty stuff. He says, well, the ones we do are not syndicated, and those are the people we do. And I told him, for instance, to use about Ramirez or some of these other people that were conservative type. He says we can't. They don't allow us to run their cartoons because they're held by another syndicate or something.
Okay,
that was his explanation. But the fact is that most of them are real lefty stuff, and but I was looking at it this morning, and they showed Biden hiding under his basement stairs, with one of his people, and they had the little sheet on here's what you have to say kind of thing.
Yeah. I look, I'm with you. I'm not convinced he's going to make it to the election.
That'll be fascinating.
I'm not convinced he's going to look because they still keep making little mistakes like that. Look at this. This is a picture that they put up of Joe. This is they announced here's Joe and Kamala, and then they look nice and everything. But if you just take a quick gander at Joe's teeth here, at first glance they look super nice and bright and white and everything.
Yeah, right.
And then you look at them a little bit further and you realize that the teeth are all straight north and south, up and down here, and yet his head is tilted a little bit to the side. And you're like, what? And then if you look real closely in here, I hate to tell you this, but you can see his actual teeth behind whatever this Photoshop is. This is some kind of Photoshop, and you can actually see his teeth underneath here. And like, it's like, what?
You sure?
This is...
I don't see it.
I do. And I'm not like a particularly careful observer. It jumped out at me when I saw the picture. I was like, those teeth are straighter than his head. I mean, they just are. And it doesn't look like a good Photoshop job to me. It looks like a bad Photoshop job. And so...
You should have gotten the guy that did Obama's birth certificate.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that guy, well, he's horrible. But to me, it just looks like somehow they're allowing him to make gaffes that he shouldn't be making at this point.
Again, you got to realize who's behind the curtain.
Yeah,
that's the thing. I mean, the deep state has been screaming bloody murder for 3.5 years, or more than that, actually, 4 years considered before the Trumpster became president, and they really are fighting tooth and nail to keep themselves alive, I think. But what will be interesting is, you start to think, what if Biden's elected? Okay, let's assume he's elected.
Yeah.
He's probably going to fire Barr right off the bat and put Comey back in there. I don't know, in the FBI. I mean, or somebody like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's going to be a major shuffling of everything.
Right.
You can imagine that. Now, the good news and bad news, I guess, is of course, I wake up every morning and say, it's only one more day, for God's sakes. It's like waiting for Christmas. Every day you wake up on the 15th of December and then the 16th, and you think, Jesus, it's been only a day, and it's only the 16th. I still got to wait, and that's what I'm looking for the election. Well, of course, first of all, the first thing we're going to have is the conventions. Which are,
virtual? They're going to do virtual?
Yeah, virtual. They're going to have, apparently they've got a very huge lineup of speakers. Kasich, for God's sakes, is going to give one of the speakers. Republican Kasich.
I mean, boy, if you thought conventions were boring before,
yeah, no.
This is going to be the most boring ever. The snooze
I would
fest.
hate to be the television channel carrying that because
Oh man, how about the camera operator?
Oh, yeah.
You're just no, seriously, like
as the camera
cocaine
it
addicted.
swings over because he fell on it.
Right, exactly. No, they're back there just doing lines to try to stay awake or something. Well, what do you what do you think about Kamala in terms of her impact on the ticket?
Nothing.
Nothing. You figure people vote for the prez, and that's
well, no, I don't think. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I think that she's not going to have a marked because the only way she would have a marked decision on the ticket, it seems to me, is if people were convinced that Joe wasn't going to make it.
And they would have to be on the fence voters anyway. In other words, you'd have to be an independent voter who was like, Trump, Biden, and then, but you're also convinced Biden's not going to finish out the term.
Yeah.
So now you have to be Trump, Kamala. Now you have to weigh those two. And I'm with you. I don't know that it's going to have any big impact because that seems like a relatively small group of people.
Well, and not only is it a small group, you have to bring it out in the open. You know, the major news peoples have to say, well, there's a lot of people thinking old Joe's not going to make it.
Well, you know that to the extent that the Republicans have airtime, they're going to pound on that.
You know, you say that, but I think they've got to be careful you don't cross the line.
And so,
I mean, of course, but although I will say this, certainly the Trumpster had no problem calling Hillary crazy Hillary.
yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
if you start to get into the medical part of it, as far as Joe, the stumbling Joe or whatever the hell it is, I think that there could be a back. I don't know. It's hard to say. But here's my projection. Of course, I'm no Scott Adams, who obviously got Kamala right as far as he's concerned. He did a victory lap on that Tuesday night.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
Got a slow clap for
Slow clap, that's right. You had to give it to him. And it was interesting to watch the comments that went by on that because a lot of people were saying, well, you didn't get it right because she's not,
she's not the top
not
of the ticket.
president. You know,
he's saying, just wait.
yeah, just right. Yeah. It ain't over till it's over.
And that's true, man. There has never been a less stable situation headed into the
Boy, I mean, you
the
talk
election.
about chaos.
Yeah.
This is the when you're standing on the cliff and you're looking out at the ocean that is just doing this all over and there's sticks and stones and fish and everything.
Get your canoe. We're going in.
We're going in, and it's just you talk about chaos. This is it. And it'll be interesting to see, of course, how and when and if it smooths out. The players, especially Trump and some of the other players, are chaos makers.
Yeah.
So, you know, if it starts to smooth out, that's not good. Yeah, that's right. We're going to go pound it again. So I think that we're waiting. Let's see, the first convention here is just in about a week or two, right?
I guess.
It's end of August.
I thought they would cancel them all because what's the point? I mean, they already know what they're doing. Everybody knows it's the powers that be.
Well, you say that, but I mean, a lot of people. I remember now that they lined up. The big deal was that they lined up Kasich to give one of the speeches at the Democrat thing.
Okay, why
He's
is
a
that
Republican.
Oh, yeah, but isn't he like barely a Republican? I mean,
Well, yeah, maybe whatever. But the whole point is, you know, this one of the things you have to understand is that if what's her name from Maine switches over and they call it bipartisan. Well,
right,
you know, give me a break. That's not.
We got Susan Collins, man.
Yeah, right. I don't think so. No. You can call it. They just get one lousy vote, and well, it was
strong bipartisan support.
Bipartisan. That's right.
Yeah.
So it's it'll be interesting. But I say the conventions are before the end of August, aren't they? Both of them?
I thought. I mean, they were certainly scheduled.
Yeah.
The Republicans was, but I don't know.
The Democrat one, I believe, is first.
Yeah, it seems like that's right.
And then the other one's about the Republicans might be the automatic, the anointing for the Republicans might be the first week or so in September, or after Labor Day. I don't know.
Who do you think they're going to pick?
Gosh, I don't know. It could be something. So anyway, we'll get through that, and then the real fighting will begin. But of course, what's going to be interesting is to see Kamala debate Pence.
Yeah, I mean, do you even
They've
think
already scheduled that. They've already scheduled it.
Yeah.
Now
right.
they canceled at least one. Notre Dame canceled a presidential one, so it's not to say that they couldn't cancel the vice president one.
Yeah.
But who's gonna watch it? I don't know.
Well, I'm with you. I mean, to me,
they're gonna call each other. Kamala comes with a bit of baggage.
Oh yeah, she's got tons of baggage.
Yeah,
and she's a terrible debater. I mean,
really?
Yeah.
Well, at least apparently they did saw off her laugh complex.
Maybe, but she just has bad instincts when it comes to speaking to a crowd.
Is that right?
Yeah, she comes off as a prosecutor, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
She comes off as authoritarian, and it's my way or the highway kind of thing. She doesn't have a give and take with the audience.
One of the reasons they said she was so good was that the conviction rate when she became, in the first couple of years that she became the attorney general, the AG, whatever it was, went from 51 to 67% under her tutelage, so to speak, which is
well, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, she, as the attorney general, all you're doing is making the decisions as to what stuff to prosecute.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, you're not out there doing the prosecution.
Well, they're really saying, of course, one of the big things was apparently she put away a lot of people of color.
Yeah, that's one of the strikes against her, and also people with simple marijuana stuff.
Oh yeah,
and the truancy thing is
the truancy thing. What I thought was interesting. Now, apparently they got overturned.
Okay,
but that was one of her things. Was we're going to cart off the parents.
Right.
I mean, and put them in jail for truancy.
She has no judgment when it comes to that stuff. She's just a hard ass.
Yeah,
that's what she is, and she just doesn't have. I don't think the flexibility to hold those disparate ideas in her head and have a good debate. I think Pence would crush her in a debate. Not that I've ever seen him do anything.
Yeah, that's true. Right. He's been in the background, that's for sure.
A couple times I've heard him speak, and he seems lucid and intelligent. But I mean, we know he probably has some weird views on religion and.
Well, is that going to come out though in the debate? And of course, you have to ask yourself. This is one of the things that's interesting, is what's the debate format going to be?
Yeah.
Are they going to be in different rooms, on a TV screen?
Right.
And they have a moderator that asks each one, it's like, 20 questions or whatever,
right,
when they have the booth, the silence, turn this booth
the cone
on.
of silence, right.
The cone of silence.
That's right.
That's right. And so the moderator can turn the flip over, and what say you?
Right, exactly.
And then, but of course, what they won't be able to do in that case is what Trump was famous for, and that was when they were on the stage, all these people, wrong,
yeah. Exactly.
I mean, just and you can imagine that if they were to have a debate with Biden,
man, he would crush the tar out of him.
Well, he would, I don't know if his handlers could instruct him on it, because he doesn't like handlers at all, obviously, Trump, but he's his own guy, but. Boy, I wouldn't think it wouldn't be too difficult to get Biden flustered.
I would think so as well. Now, Biden's had decades of public speaking on stuff, but it really does depend on his mental acuity. If it's slipping at all, I would think Trump, like you said, could bluster him into some kind of crazy, stuttering statement.
Well, especially if the Trumpster interrupts him.
Right.
I mean, if he interrupts his train of thought, no matter how accurate it is, I mean, if he jumps in there and says something, no, you said something, and you can just see the blubbering come out. I mean, that would be the attack thing, in the middle.
I knew a lawyer who's one of his strategies was when going up against a certain prosecutor, he would just object randomly to throw the guy off, and it worked spectacularly.
Is that right?
Because he would object. And he wouldn't state the grounds. He would just stand up and say object, and the prosecutor would scramble around to try to figure out what he was doing wrong. and I could see Trump doing that kind of a thing. I mean, Trump's obviously lots and lots of public speaking, but always in front of friendly crowds. But still, he's got the feel for it. So
yeah, he does.
I wouldn't want to be Biden in a debate.
No, and just to say, I'm giving odds, very small odds, but I'm giving odds that there won't be a debate.
Yeah, no, I think it's a 90% chance there's no debate.
I was going to say 60 or 70.
Well, I would say that 60 or 70 that there's no debate between Harris and Pence.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they won't want to. If you're Kamala's handler, you'd want the soundproof booth thing, like you said. You'd want everything totally
scripted.
Exactly. Here, this is what you say when we're going to give you this question. Where's Donna Brazile? Get her in here. We're going to give you this question, and you better come up with a good answer beforehand, and get in there and deliver it, and you won't be interrupted or challenged, or here are your rebuttal points or whatever it is. And when they talk about your corruption, just say, I stand on my record as a prosecutor.
Well, that's one of the things that they always do, of course, is you can just switch off.
Hey, if you got 30 seconds, you can say, this is the kind of dirty attack that I've had to face since I was a little girl in California.
Right.
On the bus to school. Exactly. Is my time up? Okay.
That's it. No, you can see that's.
It's not going to be like they're both going on Joe Rogan and having a 3-hour back and forth where he might.
No. Yeah, I think even Bernie only had an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
But speaking of this, this is a little aside.
Okay.
My next door neighbor is running for school board.
Okay.
And so what they did is the school board had a meeting this morning, and it was on TV, on our government channel, and so I said I'm going to go ahead and watch it, which I did, and I'm telling you, I'm going to talk to my neighbor. I say, you can't really want to be on that crowd. I mean, you talk about the most. Well, as Mark Twain said, God invented stupidity. That was for practice, and then he invented school boards. And the fact is that this was a perfect thing. I was watching the school board people come in, and as they were doing this stuff, and it was just amazing. I was just sitting there.
You haven't said anything yet. What did they say? Anything?
Well, that was the thing. They were asking questions that really didn't matter a whole lot. And they didn't come to any conclusions. One of the big things they were talking about was how to open up the schools, and they really have no idea. They were talking about, here's what we've done. For instance, on the buses, they've decided to have the buses only half full, and that way, I guess that's social distancing. And you understand, these buses are for kids K through 12, so it's all different. And all the kids, no matter what, if you're a 5-year-old, you have to wear a mask. And the bus driver has to wear a mask, and the kids are all separated in the bus. No 6 feet. You can bet on that. And they figured, and we're going to see if this works. And then they have another. They were talking about, well, let's do staggered classes like they do over at maybe at PK Young or something like that. And they were saying, well, maybe. There might be a little bit of a problem because of transportation. If you've got some kids coming at 8, some at 9, some at 10, and then leaving at 2, 3, and 4, whatever the hell it is. I mean, how are you going to do all that? And not to mention, what about the parents that got 2 or 3 kids in the schools? Yeah. I mean, what? I mean, are you crazy? Yeah. I was looking at their solutions, and they were saying, well, we could try this, and basically what it boiled down to was they had no solutions. And
well, they've got all the solutions is what they've got, which is none of them.
Which is none. Well, they did decide, I will say this, they decided to delay, for what it's worth, people listening here in Gainesville, they decided to, you heard it here first, they decided to delay the opening of the school system for another week, until the 30th. So
they're going to pull an all-nighter.
They're going to pull an all-nighter. That's what they were talking about. They said, well, we've only had 2 days to examine this, and we need more.
2 days?
Yeah.
What have you been thinking about for the last 6 months?
Well, again, the thing, and they're talking about the teachers have to come up with it. The teachers don't even know where they're going yet. A lot of them don't know which classes they're going to be teaching and that kind of stuff. So it's and who's going to, because they're going to have, they got 2 or 3 plans. One where they do some TV stuff, closed link or whatever, and then some brick and mortar they call it, and then they have some where the computers are in the classrooms over here somewhere, and then they have supervisors. And I'm thinking, I don't care who you are. You get a 2nd or 3rd grader, and you're sitting basically in and out of the class. You have lunch maybe and a break or something like that. You have to go to the bathroom. But the teacher doesn't know that. I mean, she's on TV in another room, and, the kids, what do you don't even raise your hand. You just tap, I got to go to the bathroom. And then you miss that part of the lesson, even though it's just
like how are they going to maintain any discipline in the class
that's
without
what,
being
that's
in
what
the class?
Supervisors are for, is to maintain the discipline. So these kids are all sitting there like staring at a screen, and I don't know if they're passing notes. I mean, you got to figure second, third, fourth grade.
Of course they're passing.
Of course they are. And I when I was listening to this, I thought these people have if. This is a perfect example, and one of the things I've seen is apparently homeschooling has come up a notch in what people are planning on doing. It's like in Florida, it's only 2 or 3%, I think, or something like that. Charter schools are like 10%.
That much, huh?
Yeah, it's quite more than you would think. Because Florida, believe it or not, is one of the leaders in charter.
Yeah, we are charter school friendly here, more or less.
But of course, everybody's still jumping on our governor because they think he's opened up everything too fast, and everybody's going to die. And they talk about the I won't call it hyperbole, but they do this hypotheticals on what if this kid does this, and what if that bus driver and this teacher. And I'm going like, what are you talking about? Why don't you wait till it happens, for God's sakes?
Well, they have to project out what they're thinking, but the problem is that they're trying to come up with a single solution.
Exactly.
That's the problem. They're trying to come up with a unified approach to this.
No, I will say they have 3 plans.
Yeah, but they're going to narrow it down to 1 before it's all over.
No, they're saying that we're going to do these 3 plans.
Okay, well,
and
still.
the parents can choose.
You can have Coke, Diet Coke, or Sprite, and that's it.
Yeah.
This is what this is. You can have Cheerios, Product 19, or
Wheaties.
or wheat. That's it, and that's all you get because that's good enough. Look, this is the definition of why it's a crappy idea to have centralized control over something like the schools. I'm hoping that there is a tidal wave of influence which literally wipes out the school boards and the administration and sets us back to the point we need to sell off the schools and let the individual principals make the decisions on what you're talking about there. Individual schools will decide this is how much distancing we're going to do. This is what we're going to do in terms of staggering. This is what we're going to do with masks. And then you let the parents decide where to send their kids.
That's what they've done. They've sent notices to all of the parents, a lot of the parents, and I don't know if all of them, about the various the principals have already sent out a piece of paper. This is the way we're going to do it. Now it's all pretty much the same, but they have the three ways. Either you can do it totally online, you can come in school and do it online, or you can come in and sit down.
That's not enough. There should be 100 ways.
I agree. What I'm saying is they were talking about all of this gibberish when I'm watching the school board. I mean, now, the next thing that happens, as you say, you talk about this tidal wave. When you were actually allowed to go to this particular school board meeting, it was held in a pretty large room, and they had distancing between the school board members. It looked like 6 feet, but they're all wearing masks. But whenever they spoke, they took the mask off. I mean, it was just, you look at this and it was just stupid. And they said, you could go down there and go in the room if you wanted to, but you had to wear a mask and you had to maintain social distancing. So instead of having 40 or 50 people in the room complaining to the school board, you get 3 or 4 before that. So, and that's what's going to happen if the parents start. One of the things that the school board and other tyrannical people hate is when a crowd shows up. Mm-hmm. And suddenly, and I've seen this at the county commission and city commission meetings, where you'll find that they're voting on something, they've announced it, and you'll see people with their buttons on or their shirts on or whatever the hell it is, and that sort of can make a difference. It can be intimidating,
sure.
But if you don't allow the people in there in the first place.
Yeah, well, look, the thing is, though, is that the market has got to figure this out.
Right.
And it's got to take over from this people because there's too much of a bottleneck. There's too many people who want to make too many different decisions right now for their kid this fall. And I'm hoping, I'm praying that the gig economy kicks in here in some way, and somebody comes up with an app like that that hooks up students and teachers or something in garages in little small classrooms or something, and you start seeing kids drop out and go to where the parents want them to go.
Yeah, they're talking about it. They've already done some of that, where they have a real teacher come in and they have 5 or 6 kids. This is what happens in the preschool stuff. The little buildings you see all over the place here. That's local, totally local.
Yeah, look,
private.
I don't know if people know this, but we've been teaching kids for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, centuries,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even millennia. And guess what? Through all that trial and error, it's come down to a pretty simple model, which is you get somewhere between 10 and 20 kids in a room with a teacher who has the authority and the power to discipline the kids, to keep them in order, and then you do the work and you do the stuff. And the further they get away from that simple model, the more it's going to break down.
Well, it was interesting because I remember my first grade, they didn't have a model. I don't remember how many kids there were in my first grade class, 25 or something like that. But we were divided into 3 groups. You know, the slow, the medium, and the fast.
Okay.
So when
you were lucky.
Yeah, right. Well, I was in the slow group. So anyway.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, the deal. Well, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that happens because
right.
You get people
like we need one fast kid in the slow group.
Not only that, but the fact is you can't tell sometimes when a kid is acting up,
right,
because they're bored stiff,
right,
or something. Then and you get placed. The teacher has to place you. But I mean, what would happen is a teacher would sit with one group here, and okay, you kids just read on your own, whatever,
yeah.
And then they'd switch off, and you say, what the hell's? And of course, we were all the same age, which made no sense at all when you think about it. There's a lot of kids in the first grade that should be in the second or third. We see this all the time. The age difference, I think, needs to be. You need to. It seems to me, it's a merit type thing.
Right. And that's exactly what it should be.
Yeah.
And of course, this is more evidence of the one size fits all thing. And now, I don't know if they do it for socialization reasons or whatever, because 1 year can make a big difference in how you treat the other kids and that kind of stuff.
It does. And again, but that's part of the teaching experience, it seems to me.
And the learning.
And the learning experience, because you're right. Certainly, if you've got an 8-year-old in with this 7-year-old, so you might have a bully problem,
right,
or not.
Right.
It could be you could as a teaching experience you could do a mentoring. It's not one of the things that I say is you could have mentoring that goes on, which would give us some responsibility.
Yeah. I
don't want to get into it. I'm gonna call my neighbor up and ask her, do you really want to sit through this?
Well, look, if she wants to get in and change it, that's fine.
I don't think she does.
I don't think you can. I think it's too entrenched. The only way around the market's going to have to find a way around it at this point, because I don't see any other. I don't see them revamping the entire system from the state down through the municipalities, the county.
Well, not only that, as Scott Adams says, among other people, it's the teachers' unions that are stopping everything.
Well, that's true too. There are absolutely political power structures in place, lobbyists.
Really big. I mean, if you want to.
Oh, and I'm sure. I mean, if I have any teacher friends, I've got teacher friends who are right now who are blocking me right now on Facebook because I said eliminate the administration and the school board.
And you're blocked.
Probably.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I know. Look, I'm with you. It's gotta shake it. Holy crap, that was quick. It's gotta shake out some way or another. And it's got to be the parents making the decisions again.
Yeah. Okay, let me move on real quick here because we're getting towards the end.
Yeah.
I just did one. Uber ridership has cratered, and nobody knows when it'll come back. Frequent riders said that it was like Uber didn't exist anymore. Longtime observers fear riders won't come back. A group of research. Let's see. Stop the presses. Hold on. Just a minute. If you're running, you said a pair of them, New York City. Please don't do this to me. Don't do this to me.
A little out of order there.
No, I know it's not. It's not that. I had the Uber. They're getting ready to do an IPO, and they're doing. Uber's thinking about doing an IPO, which of course is cratering. But the other thing is, in San Francisco, they have, and unfortunately, I didn't have it here. San Francisco, the judge apparently has ruled that says that the Uber drivers are not independent contractors in California.
Oh, thank God, because that's been the big holdup for the last 6 months or more. The big cloud hanging over Uber, and it has been this concept, this giant push to make them all employees.
Employees, right? So then they will be entitled or have to have money withheld for health care, and unemployment,
sure,
all that stuff,
benefits,
but it's gonna kill the Uber people,
of course.
And Uber has said, if you do this, if you pass this law, we're leaving totally.
Yeah.
And even though Uber gets, I forget what it's like, 1/5 of their money in the States from California.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's big, very big.
Yeah.
And basically Uber has said, we don't care. We realize it's going to take a hit to our money and so forth like that. But if you pass this law, we are leaving California. Well, you can imagine the uproar on that. So
well, I'm waiting to see the uproar, because this is the market meets the government.
Yeah.
And all we can hope, is that these billion-dollar companies somehow prevail, because the need is obviously out there.
Yes. Well, and of course Lyft has not made anything on it, but it would apply also to Lyft.
Yeah.
So with this law, so it's interesting. Okay, let me just mention here. So we're getting here towards the end.
Well, I don't know. I got a couple of things to talk about still.
Okay. Well, I did want to say one thing, that the New York subway system has asked Apple to improve masked face ID, which I thought was fascinating. And they don't, because what's happening is people have to take, in order to get on the phone.
Uh-huh.
And my phone,
yeah.
What happens is, when I turn my phone on, it immediately goes to put in your code, because it doesn't recognize my face with a mask on.
Yeah.
So, of course, if you pull it down, and they said that this, especially on the subways, and the people that are doing it, they're really panic-stricken, and they want Apple to come up with a way that, I guess, recognizes the eyes or something, and if they've asked...
Do it, Cook!
Yeah, right, exactly. But I thought it was fascinating that...
that super cool technology you made? Make it better.
Yeah, well, what I think is interesting is this begs the question, when are the masks going to go away?
Right, well, okay.
Never.
Well, okay, now we can get into my other
All right.
little simple math on the back of the envelope math.
Okay, another envelope.
Another envelope, here we go. So, as we've talked about, everybody's worried, when is this whole thing going to come to an end? What's the COVID situation, masks, whatever. Let's just take a quick look again over at Sweden. Sweden, as you know, has roughly 10 million people. At this point, they've had roughly 6,000 deaths. Okay? If we accept the concept that herd immunity happens at 60% of the population, which has been floated around, and we accept the concept that the mortality rate for this particular COVID is 0.1%, that implies that Sweden, with a population of 10 million, would have 6,000 total deaths.
Which seems like about the right number.
Exactly the right number.
Gee willikers, how did that happen?
Exactly. So what we have here is an experiment that was run in Sweden, whereby apparently whoever was going to get it, got it, and died. And the mortality rate averaged over all age groups is coming in at 0.1%. If Sweden gets no more infections, it's almost like it's a pretty good study. Mm-hmm. It's like saying basically, hey, here's the situation. No matter what you do, people are going to get infected, because this thing...
And people are going to die.
And they're going to die. But the good news is they're going to die at 0.1%.
Yeah.
Now, if you're under 70, it's 0.04%. So it's half as deadly as the flu if you're under 70, which is most people, as you know.
Yeah.
So what does this tell us? Well, we can look around the globe at the deaths at other places. And we look at, say, Florida. Florida has 20 million, roughly, people. We've only had, at this point, 8,000 deaths. If the numbers hold, we would need another 4,000 deaths to get up to our herd immunity here in Florida, if it was the same percentage as Sweden. So, now that could happen because we had a lockdown, and we're reopening in some places. And so some of the people who will get infected and die haven't been infected and died yet.
Right.
But that is basically what we would be looking at in terms of a number. So we should expect another 4,000 deaths in Florida. Now that doesn't even count the fact that our population here is a bit on the elderly side.
Yeah.
So we would expect probably some more than that, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 deaths.
You can see the headlines though, and type this big.
Type this big. if you go back and look at all of the countries, which I did today, around the world, and the states, for example, like New York, 20 some million people, 20 some thousand deaths, 0.1%. And the deaths are trailing off. In all the places where they've already had a big hump and the deaths are trailing off, the numbers are approaching 0.1 in terms of the fatality rate. So it's the flu, and it's bad, and it's particularly bad if you're an old person. It's way worse than the flu if you're super old or you have comorbidities. But if you're a young person, or not even young, if you're anywhere up to middle-aged or a young old person, and you're normally healthy, it's actually less deadly than the flu. So get ready and start looking at those numbers. Now the bad news is there are some countries who are still behind on these numbers in terms of approaching 0.1% of their population. But there may be other reasons why. Germany, for example, has a small number of deaths relative to, I think it's 5,000. But Britain is right up there to, I think, 25,000 deaths or something. And, so they need some more deaths to
need some more deaths.
Well,
get out there, do your part.
That's right. Well, die for your country.
That's it.
But the point is that
I asked that before.
Keep your eyes open and see if the death numbers don't approach 0.1 fatality rate all over, and the herd immunity is 60%, because that's what it seems to be looking like from my quick back of the envelope analysis here.
Okay.
So check my numbers, do what you're going to do, but there you go. That's my analysis. Okay, now a couple more things about the masks, real quick. There was a lawmaker in Nashville that floated charging people who won't wear their masks with attempted murder. On literally like the same news page, there is a study out of Duke University, in the hospital's Duke University medical system, which claims they tested 12 different masks.
I saw that, and they had pictures of them all.
That's right. And 2 of the 12 masks, which is 16%, actually made the situation worse.
Right.
They atomized your spray so that the droplets lingered more in the air. So if you're wearing a bandana,
if you do
the neck thing,
the neck thing,
anything that's just a cloth covering, a thin cloth covering, makes it worse. Worse. So I'm curious.
Worse than no mask.
Worse than no mask. So all of you mask Nazis out there who've been screaming at people to get a mask have made it worse in some situations.
Well, what's fascinating about
in 16% of the situations.
Well,
depending on if that's the number of masks that are distributed.
Right, that's the thing. It might not be. I mean, it may turn out that 50%. Half the people are using a bandana.
Exactly, and I bet they are.
I've seen a lot of people that, in Congress, they're all wearing these.
Exactly. So I've seen them everywhere. All the protesters are wearing that kind.
So I think that's well, quite a few, but because it's easy.
Right.
I mean, it's easy. It's convenient. But what's interesting is, if you're going to charge somebody for attempted murder for no mask, what are you going to do if they're wearing one of these?
That's what I'm saying. And
what are you going to do?
So this turns
actual murder.
Now, of course, this is science, people.
Yeah.
All you people who've been screaming out there that the masks probably help. Well, maybe you should have thought about the masks make it worse in some situations. And okay. Maybe it's only 16% if it's all evenly distributed.
Which it ain't.
No, it's not. But I mean, it could be skewed the other way.
I tell you, you can say what you want, but when I was watching the school board meeting, I mean, when 2 or 3 of them wanted to talk, they took the mask off.
Well, yeah, and
I mean, it's just that simple. And if someone went through, I saw one guy with a little cup on like this.
And do you think kids are going to take their mask off when they want to?
They are.
There's a teacher who has a great little video going around where she imitates like 10 different kids.
Yeah.
They're wearing their mask and they're like, achoo!
Yeah.
And then cover it back up again, And so again, yet another reason why we do not need a top-down decision. Yet another reason why intelligent individual parents and people need to make their own decisions about where to go and what to do. You should have businesses that should have no mask. You should have places like Sturgis where people are like walking around like it's free America again.
Well, they're having another one. They're having another bike thing in New Jersey. They're talking about. They're all panicky about that one.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, because New Jersey got smashed. New Jersey is the worst in terms of death per million.
Really?
Of every state.
I did not know that.
Even worse than New York.
Wow.
So now, actually, I didn't check New Jersey's numbers in terms of 10.1% of their population, but I bet it's close. So anyway, that's just very interesting that on the one hand they're talking about attempted murder charges, and on the other hand they're realizing that what they're trying to force people to do may actually make things worse. So doesn't surprise me.
Nope.
All right. Let's see. So we're done with that. You got anything else? Oh shoot! I had this whole. Oh my goodness.
What was the thing you left over from last week?
Well, there's a couple of things. The first, the neat one I wanted to show you, which I'll show you right now, is the rocket. This is the Elon Musk rocket being launched here, and this is over LA as it does its booster change. This is just a spectacular image here. This is the rocket going up, and kablamo! There's the second stage, and it goes off. And here are these planes coming up. This is just so cool. This is time lapse, obviously, but very neat image there. But another thing that we didn't talk about this week, obviously, is the protests, which are still going on. And this is, I made a little video, a montage of all these protests in places like Portland, where we were told once the feds left that there would be no more unrest.
Oh, really?
Apparently
we
not.
told that?
Yeah. Remember, the feds were the ones that caused it.
I remember that part.
It was dying out, and then Donald Trump sent the feds over there to stir things up, and then now he's pulled them out, and yet here we are in Portland, and it's just as bad as it ever was.
Yeah.
Instead, now they don't have a target like the federal courthouse, so they're going. Oh, this is New York. This I showed last week, but they're going into the neighborhoods. Riots been declared a couple of times.
Yeah,
the Portland police are out there. If I was to play this video all the way through, you would see them going out there, pushing people down in pretty harsh ways, and there's been the riots continue. Basically, we've got Chicago in this thing. You saw that it had to pull up the bridges because people were coming in caravans. A tweet went out that people were responding to, and they're looting the stores. Here they are just pushing people down. This is so funny. All the cops are jogging, and look, here are the protesters jogging in front of them. Nobody's running real fast, but if this is like a kid's game of tag, they run it up and they just push them down from behind. This is crazy. And but here's the bottom line: is they're not doing enforcement. They're not enforcing the laws.
Right.
They're allowing looting and destruction of property. And to me, look, it's clearly not intended to do any goodness. These are clearly just, they're rioters. They get in this old lady's face right here. This is the woman from a week ago. She goes outside. Look at this guy. Look at this punk. In a minute, he's going to run back and scream in her face about how privileged and entitled she was. Here he is. And they got paint they poured on her face. This is an old lady. There's a big crowd. And look at her. She's sticking her finger in the guy's chest. This is fabulous. She has more courage than anybody in Portland. It's amazing. This dude, I wish somebody would just knock that guy out. But anyway, in a minute, you're going to see them vandalize the Ronald McDonald House in Chicago.
Oh my God.
Yeah, with families inside. 30 families inside. They've got their sick kids waiting to get treatment, and these people are out there smashing the windows, trying to draw attention. And
got attention, all right.
Oh yeah. Well, here's some looting going on, and you're talking about, people are still talking about, well, this is just reparations.
Yeah.
And they're getting backed. What's amazing is that you don't see any of these. Well, I don't watch the regular media, but So I don't know. We don't have TV, so I don't know if this gets shown on TV. But I don't think so, because I mean I get all these images off of Twitter.
Okay.
Where independent journalists post this, people like Andy No and Tim Pool and those guys.
Pool, yeah.
And they're going out there risking their lives.
Yeah.
Like the reporters of the old days.
Andy got really hurt pretty bad.
Yeah, he did. He got smashed in the head with bricks and stuff. And this woman was wearing a Nazi armband, so they painted a Nazi lives here on her house. Fortunately, her neighbors came out to fight off the crowd for her. And these 4 guys held off the crowd because they're a bunch of punks. But it's amazing how they're letting this go on. The media isn't saying anything negative. They're shooting these lasers in the woman's face, which is literally, that's assault. I mean, you can say what you want, but they can blind her with those lasers, and they should be arrested for that kind of stuff. And so somebody's got to, at some point, get to the statutes, not the statues, but the statutes, and they've got to change it, and they got to make, they've got to stop using cops for ridiculous stuff, but they have to keep using cops for the stuff where people's property is getting damaged or when people are getting damaged. You can't stop policing stuff that is actual crime, because otherwise you're going to get massive waves.
I'll tell you, that laser business is not good.
It's amazing. And nobody is out there doing anything in terms of law enforcement for this poor woman who's out in front of her house. Look at her, they're grabbing on her, trying to grab her armband off. They're screaming at her to go inside here. I'm turned the volume down, but it's despicable. And all this one woman, they're going to rage at this one woman like she's the Nazi queen or something.
Right.
And I mean, obviously she doesn't have anything to do with the movement. I mean, maybe she.
When it's interesting, because one of the things that you did see in Nazi Germany were when the brown shirts got together and did this kind of stuff to Jews, for instance.
Right.
And I mean, so they're the ones that obviously are the Nazis.
They are,
quote unquote,
and they call themselves the Nazis. I mean, they call themselves the anti-fascists, but it's really they're the fascists.
Yeah.
I mean, they are. And here's this is hilarious. This is a group of Coloradoans taking law enforcement into their own hands because there's no cops around. They forced this Antifa group out of their neighborhood. Look, you can see them in a residential neighborhood. What the heck are they doing there? This group of Americans shuffles them off into a ditch here in a minute and just starts beating them. And now they don't beat them. You hear the neighborhood guys say, "Don't use your weapons," and they don't even let. Some old guy picks up a stick and tries to hit one of the Antifa guys, and somebody stops him from doing it. And they're like, "Look, just punch him. Just punch him in the face, and that's enough." And so they have a little restraint there. But this is the kind of stuff you're going to see. If the police don't enforce the laws, guess what you're going to get? Vigilantes. And they're not going to be like a impartial judge and jury. There's not going to be no innocent until proven guilty when the vigilantes start rolling out there. They're just going to roll out there and take matters into their own hands, just like the protesters are apparently doing. So this is what we're in for if you abandon law enforcement, and it's just so unfortunate.
Well, one of the things that you do unfortunately find is if somebody on any side gets smacked up hard, you get an emotional response immediately, and if you've got a gun, somebody's going to die.
Maybe so. It's certainly going to escalate the situation in a big way. And that's what apparently happened in Chicago the last few days. Allegedly, the reason for the looting was there was a shooting by Chicago police of like a 15-year-old guy.
Except it wasn't, was it?
Well, apparently the guy was armed and shooting back at the police. And so it was...
Okay, this wasn't the one with the knife at the neck.
No. This was just another... this was a... I don't know, the kid... There was a report of a kid with a gun, or a person with a gun. The police showed up. They identified somebody, and then that person shot at the police, and the police returned fire and killed him. And then that information was posted on social media, which I guess prompted everybody to go
crazy.
Huh?
Crazy.
Right. Well, yeah. And so, but you simply have to have law enforcement do their jobs, or this is the kind of stuff you get. This is them setting fires in the streets in Portland. In a minute, you'll see them break into the police union headquarters and try to set a fire there. And this is them waking up people just randomly in neighborhoods. She's got a megaphone and she's just screaming at the sleeping people at midnight, like just to raise awareness, I guess, as though people aren't aware. But this is New York City, empty, in the middle of a Saturday. And the question you were talking last week about whether the rich people will come back to New York. Mm-hmm. Well, they're not back yet.
No,
because this guy was standing in the middle of the street for, he said, 5 minutes. And as you can see, there's maybe a car way down there, but it's certainly not like regular New York. This is the aftermath of Chicago, so not exactly cleaned up after themselves in this area. It's I mean, if you're a business owner, I can't understand why you're not suing. I'm still waiting for the tidal wave of lawsuits, and I guess we'll see whether they show up or not. So anyway, still going on. Just thought we had to point that out, and we'll see where it goes from here. So
we're about done.
Yep, that's all I got.
All right. Well, your cat is waiting outside to come in.
The cat awaits. Yep. All right. All right. Well, hey, let's see. I'll take us over here to the copyrights, and we will thank you, Kevin MacLeod. We really appreciate it. These tracks, and we'll be back on the 22nd. No, excuse me, the 14th. Or excuse me, the 16th. I'm reading here, and there's stuff in the way on the date. So we'll be back Sunday. Come and join us then. We'll see ya.